Hi everyone, it's meteorologist Joe Chaffee as we take a look at today's model runs. Very interesting model runs today in the long range, and we're going to get into this in just a second. But first I want to take care of the short range because we do have the next weather system that's coming out of the plains and makes for a rather intense low from the standpoint of pressure in eastern North Dakota. But by the way, notice very little snow on this. In the meantime, we're going to be dry here into Monday without any worries and into Monday night. But by Tuesday daybreak, we're going to start to see rain spreading across Pennsylvania, western New Jersey, upstate New York, with some moderate to heavy rain as the first piece of this two-piece puzzle comes out. And you can make out the arm here. We'll call it an arm, and I'll just draw it in for you where the weather front is. But there's a front kind of like this. So you're getting this first area of precip that is with Gulf moisture shooting up the coast. And then there'll be a second piece to deal with over time. And you can start to see the beginnings of that second piece here. So this is now Wednesday morning, Wednesday overnight, 1 a.m. And we have the first piece is already gone. So we'll draw that here. And that's with this little wave that develops. There's kind of a warm front right in there, and a little frontal wave develops on that. And then we have the second front with another wave that's going to develop on it over here that's going to move up to the northeast over time. So as we move into Wednesday, so we get a bit of a break from that after that first shot of rain. And then during the day, Wednesday into Wednesday night, this is Wednesday afternoon on this map, we have the next cold front that's going to be moving in, and we'll see it here. I'm sorry, so let's draw the warm front in first. If it lets me, then it will. But there's another warm front there, and we've got the trailing cold front now that's going to be approaching. And with that, by the way, is a fairly decent area of showers and thunderstorms in the Tennessee Valley back down into Alabama, and this will be moving eastward. We'll see if that winds up holding together over time. So as we move it along, kind of weakens a bit, but at least it does bring some rain into North and South Carolina. The main focus of energy is going to be to the north in the head of the warm front, which is just about like this. And you're going to get some heavy rains out of that as that moves on up to the northeast. So we'll just take it on through here. By Thursday morning, it's all done and into northern New England, and you can see it going by there. And when we put the rainfall totals on it based on the 2-day totals, and you can see it's fairly decent. There's some 2 to 3 inch plus rains over parts of southern New England, southeastern New York, back into much of southeastern Pennsylvania, into New Jersey and Maryland and Delaware, and also some decent rains in the western North Carolina mountains, up into northern Georgia, eastern Tennessee, western Kentucky. Now, my feeling is that at the very least that models should perform in line with forecasts, and hopefully they outperform just like they did in the last 2 rain events that we've seen. So that would be a great thing if they wind up outperforming. So now let's look at the models in the long term, because as I said, this was a very interesting day in terms of what the models are showing. And I'm going to focus on the GFS first, because as we move through time, and these are new developments after we have a kind of a transitional period here with some colder temperatures, but nothing really too exceptional. And then beyond the 8-day period, it really starts to change up in Canada. We have the development on this run, and I want to emphasize that, you know, if you're a winter snow lover, you're going to love this run. You're going to hope beyond hope that it doesn't change. Okay, but we have the developments of a fairly strong polar vortex right in northern Hudson's Bay, and we've got a polar flow that comes out of Canada and envelops most of North America as we move into the period after December 8th or so. So beyond December 7th or 8th, it really, the model turns very cold. I wasn't so much surprised by seeing this as I was maybe seeing the extent of it. And of course, we're going to have model disagreements in how we get there. I'm going to switch to the Canadian run first because there are big differences at day 10, but there's also one important similarity that I want to point out. First off, we're going to look at the GFS here, and by the way, I do have a post that gets into all this, and I'll put the link up at the end of the video so you can go to the post and actually have the maps in front of you, and I've got all the jets drawn in. But I just want to show you here that there's a trough there, trough, and you've got this long jet, of course, and then we have this big high over Alaska, and we have a trough out in the Atlantic, along with a blocking ridge that goes up southeast of Greenland and toward Greenland. Okay, so you look at this, and you say, all right, well, it's kind of messy, but it is there. And let's see now, when we take a look at the Canadian model, okay, because the Canadian model is, at least at this point, different, okay? So here's the GFS, all right? There's troughing in the east here, so it's a colder look on the GFS, a flat flow west to east across the south, and you've got this broad troughing that goes on with energy along the Pacific Northwest coast. The Canadian is different. The Canadian instead says that we have a deep trough, if I can get there we go, deep trough out in the Atlantic, kind of a deep trough here in the west, but instead of being spread out, it's more concentrated, and we have a big ridge building here in the eastern states, okay? So that's different. Where they're similar, and this is important, I think, is that we do have this big upper high that's building across up the Bering Straits and up into north of Alaska, because there's going to be a big surface high that's going to develop here. Now, the Canadian only goes out to day 10, all right? Now, let's look at the European, because the European has its own adventure as well, although I kind of have some skepticism about the European in different ways. And where I'm skeptical is the European has this really intense storm that develops near Nova Scotia. It has a 957 millibar low sitting southeast of Nova Scotia by a week from Wednesday. And I'm just going to warn you that the European has been very, very bad lately in making intense storms in the days 8 through 10 period that just don't wind up being there. So you're going to have to really prove it to me. It has, one compact system that develops. It has the trough in the west. It has this ridge that's building up into Canada. So, it's different from the GFS in that we have, and I'll switch it back as you can see. See, the GFS has got, broad troughing here out in the Atlantic, and there's a little bit of a ridge up in southeastern Canada, but then it's got some kind of shortwave trough here back in the from James Bay down to the northern Great Lakes. I think what it says is that the European makes just one big system out of whatever's coming out in the east, and the GFS says no, it's going to be two weaker systems. And as I said, the European's been so guilty lately of doing these intense storms. Now, if the European is right, there will be a big snow event for much of the interior Northeast, because it has a really intense low here, and there would be some like mega lake effect snows and all the rest of it. But you know what? Let's figure out which model's got the better idea. And as we go down the road with the GFS, you can take a look, and I'll take you out to the 16th day. I mean, it just has a well-developed polar vortex that's locked in. I mean, if you were a winter weather lover, you could not have asked for a better run here of models of the GFS. This is, you got this big vortex that's just pulling down cold air. You've got a block here. You've got a blocking high here. So this thing is just kind of put in place. And you have a very active southern jet stream that's coming into play. So it's almost a bit of a split flow here that's developing on the GFS. Now, again, whether it's correct or not remains to be seen. But one thing I will say, and I think this is important, this is really important in the long term, no matter which model you look at today, one of the things that they're very similar on, even though they kind of get there in a different way, is that I want you to look at, these are the above normal, above and below normal temperatures and where they are in North America. And you notice that much of Canada is above normal except for a few pockets in the west and a few pockets in the east. This is the GFS, and we are now, December 1st, December 2nd, 3rd. Now, what happens is that above normal area over time gradually shrinks, and the below normal area gradually increases, and you can see how, based on that pattern I showed you going out to days 12 through 16, that it gets cold everywhere, and there's very little, except for right over Hudson's Bay, it is cold across all of the Canadian landmass, and we have not seen that at all throughout this fall. So this is a big change on the GFS run, and even though it only goes out to the 10th day, I'll put the Canadian at day 10, and we'll look at, let me get the GFS back up to, here's the GFS at day 10, here's the Canadian at day 10, okay? They're not that much different. I mean, both the Canadian and the GFS want to change the temperature profile in northwestern Canada. They differ in the middle and they differ a bit in the east, but they are pretty much in agreement on what goes on in the west. So this could have, this is a, I think that's one big takeaway that we have through all of this. And I just want to show you real quick before we wrap it up today. We'll look at the USA, because I know there are a lot of you from different parts of the country that want to see your particular area, and we know how models love to change. So what I'm showing you today may not be what I'm showing you tomorrow. So here's that rain area in the east. Now notice there is some snow over time that does fall up in the northern plains and up in the northwest, and gradually we start to see some action for later next week with this coming weekend in the southwest with some snows there. But then we have another system that comes into the northwest. Now the GFS does want to bring a low off the southeast coast along about the middle of, not this coming week, but the week after. And then you can see it's got another low that comes out of Colorado with some snows up through the Midwest. This is this is now at day 10, December 9th, where it has low pressure that heads up through the Ohio Valley. It'll bring much, if this were right, it would bring much of the Great Lakes area, their big snows, and then also much of New England will get snow out of this, and then it's got another system back toward the end of the period. So, let's not focus on the specifics with that. I would just say that you've got, certainly from the standpoint of storminess, we are going to see a much more active pattern. So that part of the equation, at least, we've been able to change a bit. Now we're going to see if this supposed cold that the models are generating, particularly the GFS, winds up being true. By the way, there's a huge Siberian high that's building back up in this area, and that's some of that cold is what's bleeding down into the United States. So let's see how it plays. In the meantime, let's look forward to that drought-breaking rain, or should say drought-denting rain that's coming for Tuesday into Thursday of this coming week. A dry start to your work week on Monday, should be a dry finish as we go into next weekend. So check out, I'll have the link up here for you. Also, for those of you who are interested, if you're in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island, Eastern Pennsylvania, Southern New England area, you can download my app and subscribe to my forecast. It's just $1 a month. It keeps things advertiser free, and it gives you a more specific forecast for those regions right to your phone and easy access. So if you're interested, the app itself is free. You can subscribe to any forecaster. There are forecasters throughout the United States. So if you download the app in your local particular area that you're watching and you're interested in getting a particular forecaster's viewpoint, you can go that route. So that link will be up there too. Website, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, weatherlongisland.com, nycweathernow.com, where Angry Ben will have a long range post up sometime tonight, and ssstormchasers.com.